Good evening. I am Melissa Harris, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to tonight's Region 7 Town Hall meeting. We are happy that you have joined us for this very important event. Tonight, we will provide you with updates on the Comprehensive Master Plan, SPLOST 5 updates from your region, and we will field questions that you may have about these very important matters. We hope to provide you with the greatest clarity and a renewed sense of partnership with our district. At this time, I invite Superintendent Cheryl Watson Harris to bring you greetings.
Greetings, Region 7. As shared, I'm Cheryl Watson Harris, the super proud superintendent of DeKalb County School District. And I'd like to thank you all for joining us. We know it's the end of probably a hard work day, and we appreciate that you have set this time aside to be in community with us to discuss this very important topic. Our Comprehensive Master Plan, or CMP, and SPLOST 5. It was important to us that we address as many of the outstanding questions about SPLOST 5 so we could take a look back as we continue to plan forward. So this evening, again, we aim to provide updates on exactly where we are now and in this CMP process by bringing clarity to the questions and concerns that you have about our pause in the process and why that was necessary, and where we are and how we're planning to move forward. We have received, this is our, I believe, I'm losing count, I want to say our fifth or sixth town hall in this series. And we have received such incredible questions and suggestions from our families. So please know that we're going to answer as many of them as possible during this session. And then we promise each week to provide answers on the Friday of each week from the questions that are shared during our sessions. So we're eager to ensure that our scholars are not only given a variety of high quality and innovative academic options, but they're also educated in facilities that allow them to thrive. And for us, that is the intention behind the CMP, to make sure that we're giving our children access to high quality, robust options that are going to set them on the pathway to their preferred future, while also ensuring that they're learning in high quality buildings. So as a system, we did take a pause with changes to get ourselves on the right track, but now we're ready to move forward. Full steam ahead, we're ready to move forward with our CMP. And please know that the fruits of these meetings, the questions you ask us, the recommendations that you provide will help us to chart a productive, efficient course for the district for years to come. And that's just so great that we have this opportunity to dream so audaciously for our scholars. So again, thank you for joining us this evening. And at this time, it is my privilege and my pleasure to introduce your regional superintendent, the regional superintendent for Region 7, Dr. Rodney Swanson. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Watson Harris, and good evening, everyone. I am Dr. Rodney Swanson, Regional Superintendent for Region 7, where we are anchored in success and where we teach, learn, lead, and serve. I serve the schools in the Cedar Grove and McNair clusters, along with the Early Learning Center, DeKalb Elementary School of the Arts, Narvie J. Harris Elementary School, and Robert Shaw Elementary School. We welcome you and thank you so much for attending this important meeting. Back to you, Ms. Harris.
Thank you so much, Dr. Swanson. And now I invite Richard Boyd and Hans Williams from our operations division to provide a presentation and update for the community. Mr. Boyd.
Thank you, Mrs. Harris. I'd like to welcome everyone again tonight to the district's Comprehensive Master Plan Regional Town Hall for Region 7. Tonight, we're going to focus on a update for SPLOST 5, and also we're going to talk about the CMP and give you an update on that. I would like for you to know that this is, as Superintendent Watson Harris said, this is our fifth of these town halls, and we have two more left to do on Monday night, the 30th. We'll be doing Region 7, And on Tuesday, the 31st, we'll be doing Monday, we'll be doing Region 6. And then on Tuesday, we'll be doing Region 1. The presentation is the same for each one of these meetings. The one difference will be, since this tonight is for Region 7, we'll be focusing on projects that we've done in the past for Region 7 and ongoing projects in Region 7 now as well. Next, I'd like to just go through our agenda. So first, we're going to talk about the East Boston facility improvements. We'll be doing an overview of the East Boston program. We'll be talking about current projects in Region 7. And then we'll provide an update on the comprehensive master plan, giving an update on the status, and then also a timeline to completion. And then we'll be spend the bulk of the time for your questions and providing responses to your questions. Mr. Williams?
Thank you, Richard. And one thing I think is worth pointing out and keeping in mind is that tonight, as you can see here, we have a focus on facility improvements and particularly eSPLOST. These is an important component of the comprehensive master plan insofar as the facility improvements, the need for roofs, HVACs, all of the upgrades to our facilities is an important part of looking at the future of the district. It's a component, but it's an important component. And eSPLOST is an important funding mechanism for that. You'll see as we go along and talk about it that we're soon to be moving from eSPLOST 5 to eSPLOST 6. We'll talk about that. But that component, the future looking of how are we funding and future facility improvements, is a big reason why we're looking at eSPLOST at this meeting today. There will be an update on the CMP and the CMP process, but tonight is not about options for the CMP. You'll hear more about it, but we'll be presenting that at the next set of town halls at the end of September. So we're going to keep our focus, at least tonight, for the majority of this presentation on current projects. I'm going to explain a bit about eSPLOST, what it is, what the program has done so far before we get into the CMP update. So with that, as we're looking at eSPLOST and facility improvements, it's important to have an understanding of what eSPLOST is and how it relates to facility improvements for our schools. eSPLOST stands for Education Special Purpose Local Option Sales Tax. That is a 1 penny sales tax on all goods and services sold in DeKalb County. The revenue from this sales tax is used by the school district to fund capital projects and purchases. For DeKalb, that has meant new facilities, new classroom additions, major and minor renovations at nearly every school, as well as purchasing new technology and equipment. This penny sales tax generates about $500 million over 5 years. And while this seems like quite a lot, the estimated costs to address all facility needs across the district are over $2 billion. This means that eSPLOST is and will continue to be a necessary funding source for facility improvements in this district. The eSPLOST sales tax is approved by voters every 5 years, and so operates on a 5-year funding cycle. We are currently near the end of the 5th such cycle, which is eSPLOST 5, which began in July of 2017 and ends at the end of June of 2022. This coming November, DeKalb County voters will vote on renewing eSPLOST for the next funding cycle, eSPLOST 6. Over the nearly 25 years eSPLOST has been in place, it has paid for 36 new or replacement schools, 31 building additions or school conversions, over 80 elementary school gymnasium additions, and major and minor renovations and improvements to every single school or building in this district. To show the extent of the impact of eSPLOST, we've listed some of the major improvements that eSPLOST has paid for in each region from eSPLOST 1 till now. I'll skip over much of this in the interest of time, and I'm going to focus primarily on Region 7 for tonight. However, I encourage anyone interested to go to the CMP webpage and download this presentation, or attend the next 2 CMP regional town hall meetings that we're having next Monday and Tuesday. The content of each presentation will remain the same, but I will be highlighting the major projects in a different region for each night. So for tonight, we're going to go ahead and skip ahead to Region 7. So as you can see, eSPLOST 1 helped pay for Cedar Grove Middle School, and RVJ Harris Elementary School, on Avondale Middle School, which is where DeKalb Elementary School of the Arts is currently, McNair High School addition, and 11 new elementary school gymnasium additions. East Blos 2 helped pay for the Ronald D. McNair Discover Learning Academy Elementary School, the facility renovations and HVAC and roof replacements at several schools in Region 7. East Blos 4 paid for the Early Learning Center at Barack Obama Elementary School and McNair Middle School. So keep in mind that this is not a full listing. Only some of the major projects, such as new schools and additions, are what we've listed here. As I said before, every school in this district has been improved as a part of the East Blos program. So now let's skip ahead to current projects. What are we working on now? While we are coming to the end of sales tax collection for East Blos 5, we are very much still in the middle of construction. So let's once again skip ahead to Region 7. And as before, if you're interested in the other regions that I'm skipping over, I encourage you to go on the CMP webpage and download this presentation, or attend the other 2 CMP regional town hall meetings that we're having on Monday and Tuesday of next week, or do both. There we go. So you can see here that East Blos 5, these are projects we're currently working on or finishing up, is Cedar Grove High School auditorium addition and a turf and track installation. DeKalb High School of Technology South is in Region 7 getting HVAC component replacement, plumbing and lighting, and site improvements. Cedar Grove Elementary and McNair High School are both getting security vestibules, and McNair is also getting turf installation. All of our high schools across the district are getting turf and track replacements. So, and again, this isn't a perfectly comprehensive. We're listing a few more things, but there are smaller projects you'll see, like fence replacements. There are components in the East Blos 5 that we're not listing for every single school here. So you can see a few of these projects are already completed or near completion, and we're working to complete the remainder over the next 2 years. Speaking of complicated projects, we're going to take a look here at what's already come out of East Blos 5. Speaking of completed projects. So East Blos 5, we have already completed 3 new elementary schools: John Lewis Elementary, Doraville United Elementary, and a replacement Indian Creek Elementary. We've replaced 19 elementary school playgrounds and have so far completed turf and track replacements at 6 of our high schools, with the rest being completed in the coming months. We have completed plumbing fixture replacements at Bowie Theme Elementary and Oakview Elementary, and have completed perimeter fencing projects at the 24 schools in fencing groups A and B, and there are 12 more in fencing group C that we're working on now. So just to give you an idea of what these projects look like, you can see here the beautiful fields and tracks that we've installed at Cedar Grove High School and Redan High Schools, and Southwest DeKalb and Arabia Mountain. And I love these pictures, especially Arabia Mountain. I always have to remind myself that that's a real picture and not a computer generated one. You can see here the new Indian Creek. That's a beautiful new facility. And this is the same prototype design as John Lewis Elementary and Doraville United. And you can see here a few more pictures of these beautiful new facilities. And finally, you can see the touchless plumbing fixtures that we've installed at Oakview Elementary and Bowie Elementary. And while these may not look as pretty as the previous improvements, I can assure you that these new fixtures are having a real positive impact on these schools. So these projects are just the beginning of what we're already working on. As you saw earlier, we are still working on dozens of projects that will improve schools across the district. Some are nearing completion, some are in construction, and some are still being designed. But we expect to have most or all of these projects complete in the next 2 to 3 years. So now that we've talked about what we've done in the past and what we're currently doing, let's take a moment to focus on what we're doing next. Hopefully by now, everyone is familiar with the Comprehensive Master Plan, or the CMP. This plan will help guide the future of the district's facility improvements, among other things, including making recommendations on what will be included in the next round of East Blos funded projects. That's a big reason of why we're talking so much about East Blos before we talk about the options at the next meeting. So at the moment, The CMP team is working on putting together options and recommendations that will be presented next month at another round of regional town hall meetings. Many of you may remember that we have been working on the CMP since the end of last year and had originally hoped to have options ready by the time school let out this past school year. Unfortunately, this timeline slipped into the summer, and with preparation for school start and leadership change in operations, the CMP was more or less on hold until earlier this month. While we have lost some time, the next round of town hall meetings will put us back on track for completing the CMP, as they will give you the chance to give us your invaluable feedback on the direction of the CMP, which the CMP team will use in drafting the comprehensive master plan. So to give a more complete timeline of what that looks like, you can see in green the August and September regional town hall meetings. In gray, you can see the development of CMP options for facilities, special programs, redistricting, and prioritization of school facility improvements. These are happening now in preparation for the regional town halls next month. In blue, you can see the final components of the CMP, the implementation plan, financial analysis, draft project list for East Block 6, and the final draft of the comprehensive master plan. The CMP team is working hard to make up for lost time and complete the CMP this fall as originally planned. So with that, I'm sure there are several questions and comments that our community has, and I'd like to spend the rest of our hour here addressing those.
Hans, thank you so much for your presentation. As a reminder to the community members, if you have any questions related to tonight's presentation or around any of the projects that are happening in Region 7, we encourage you to put those questions in the chat. We did receive some questions in our CMP mailbox, and so I will start by reading those. The first question: will the comprehensive master plan provide the district with recommendations for their vacant properties based on community feedback?
The comprehensive master plan is looking at all of district's properties, but there isn't a special focus on vacant properties. So there won't be recommendations for how to use or dispose of properties simply because they're vacant, but at the same time, if there is a use for a property that will be in line with the vision of the comprehensive master plan, then that will be part of the recommendations.
Thank you so much. Does the comprehensive master plan consider the needs of underperforming schools?
The components of for facility improvements specifically, the comprehensive master plan is looking primarily at the condition of each facility, and there was an educational suitability assessment that was done as well on how the building is laid out. But at least for facility condition improvements, the recommendations aren't tied to the performance of the school.
Yes, I'll jump in there at the start, and I so appreciate that question, and I appreciate you, Mr. Williams, addressing the facilities objectives of the CMP. As I shared, they're twofold. One is around the facilities and making sure our children are in safe and healthy facilities, and the second part is really for us to look at the access to high quality academic programming. What we do every day is focus on school improvement and supporting schools that have been underperforming or have performance concerns. That's our day-to-day work within the district, but we are looking at which programs are successful as we explore our ways to strengthen our school choice program and what our community wants in terms of access for their children. So thank you so much for that question.
Thank you, Superintendent, and thank you, Mr. Williams. Superintendent, because you raised the statement around choice, I bring up Ms. Paris's question that's in the chat. Under task 3, it says options development. What possible school choice options are being considered for Region 7? As Mr. Williams shared at the beginning, we're not sharing recommendations this evening
That will be included in our next round of town halls, where we'll come before you and share the recommendations that have been made at that point. So we're not sharing recommendations this evening, but we are, and I happen to see just another question that came up, and I'll just take the liberty of answering that right now regarding what metrics are we using. We're first looking at our 2019-2024 strategic plan. And really our commitment to equity and access for all scholars. So there'll be a number of metrics that we're using to determine which programs are successful. But even if there's a program that hasn't been successful to date, perhaps we have to ask ourselves, have we really supported that program to be successful? If we want all children to have access to advanced placement courses or have the option to be enrolled in an international baccalaureate program, just because currently to date, that has not been successful, that doesn't mean that we want to abandon things. We want to have programs that represent the values of the organization and what we have heard from our parent groups, and will continue to hear from our parent groups as we complete this process. Thank you, Ms. Harris.
Thank you so much, Superintendent. Question here. When is a school added to the list for a new roof?
The school, all projects are going to be added to the list. As I said, SPLOST works on a 5-year funding cycle. So right now we're working through a funding cycle that began almost 5 years ago. The list, so to speak, that we're looking at right now is looking at with the funding sources we have now, and especially with eSPLOST 6, it's not the only funding source, but it is a big one. What are the projects that we're going to build for the future? So right now, through the facility condition assessments, through talking with our regional maintenance supervisors, we're going through and prioritizing all facility condition improvements, roofs, HVACs, bathrooms, all the different needs of each facility. And out of that will come a project list, or in reality, a series of project lists for the different funding sources that we have. So there isn't a particular mechanism or way that a school gets added to the quote unquote list. It's really more based on the assessments that we currently have that we've just done. There'll be a prioritization, and then we'll go down that prioritized list to say, here's the next school and its needs. Sometimes that is more focused. Sometimes there is a particular focus on roofs. And so here's the next school that has an unfunded need for a new roof, or HVAC or what have you, and sometimes it's more broad. Here's the next school that is in need of many different things, roofs, HVAC, and something else. So hopefully that answers the question.
Thank you so much, Mr. Williams. What is the process for giving recommendations? Cedar Grove is receiving a well-deserved turf field, but I am partial to Arabia Mountain because my child is there.
The process for recommendations, what we're looking at right now is especially because we've lost a bit of time with the CMP, we're looking at presenting to the public at the next round of town hall meetings, options. And in this case, while we're looking to have as complete as an option, so to speak, as we can, or as is feasible to get useful feedback, it will likely be, here is an option with a few variants for the community to respond to. The idea with presenting options first, and the way we call them options rather than a recommendation that was then finalized later, is this initial offering, this initial presentation of these initial options are meant to be something for the community to respond to bounce off of, to say, we like this, we don't like that, this needs to change, this seems to be prioritized over that sort of thing. And so it's a refinement process where the options will be put out at the next town hall meetings. There'll be responses to that. And then from that, we can draft a draft CMP, something that takes into account all of the feedback that we've gotten, both from the town hall meetings this fall, but even comments and different feedback that we've gotten throughout the entire CMP process. From that draft CMP, that we can then further refine and become what is the final CMP document that gets put in front of the board.
Thank you so much, Mr. Williams. There's a question in the chat around, in the next town hall, will you all be discussing Flex Academy? For those who want to know, Flex Academy is the district's virtual program for our students. Right now, Flex Academy is strictly serving students in grade 9 through 12. Families that choose the virtual option for their elementary school students and middle school students will be served by their home school. And so for the parent who started to ask a question around Flex in the chat, if there's a specific question that you have this evening, we're happy to be able to provide you an answer to that. Or you could also reach out to your school's principal or school administration, and you should be able to get additional information. We see the question, and so always glad to put on another district-wide meeting next month, and definitely can ensure that we discuss more around Flex. The next question related to operations. Will split feeders be considered in the options? Prior to East Blast 5 project selection, this was not considered, as I recall.
Yes, so in the past, really over the past decade, it's been a goal of any time that there's redistricting to reduce split feeders as much as possible. We do have split feeders, and what that means is one elementary school feeding into maybe 2 different middle schools or 2 different high schools. At the moment, we have several split feeders, several elementary schools that feed into more than 1 middle school, particularly in regions 3 and 5. There are not any in region 7. But once you get to middle school, I believe there's only 1 split feeder between middle and high, and that's a small portion of Sequoia that students go from Dorville United Elementary to Sequoia and then to Chambly High School, whereas all other students at Sequoia go to Cross Keys. And so, yes, I think we will be looking at reducing split feeders where possible and where it makes sense. But at the same time, we're in looking at what matches the long-term goals and vision of the district. We're not ruling out split feeders as something that might be necessary, especially for, as transitions happen. As a long-term plan, as a 10-year plan that the CMP is, it takes time to get from where we are to where we want to be. And so during that process, there may need to continue to be more split feeders than we would like. But we're still looking at that, but I will say keeping 1-to-1 is what we call it, keeping all of the students in one school, matriculating up to the same school from elementary to middle and middle to high is absolutely still a goal that we have.
Thank you so much. Another question. Does current SPLOST funding include maintenance of facilities that are in need of major renovations until they make the list? Or does that come from the district's general fund?
That's a good question. SPLOST funding is for capital purchases, which in this case means new HVAC system, new roof. And what that means is it does not cover maintenance. So while a school is waiting, if say we have several schools right now that are in the process of getting a new roof or a new HVAC system, construction will begin. For many of these schools, construction will begin next summer, and any remaining construction will begin the next summer. But if in the meantime there's a roof leak or an HVAC component breaks and needs to be replaced, that will come from the general fund. As I said, there are other funding sources we're looking at to be able to make some improvements. I know we're using CARES Act funds on some of these things to help facilitate and accelerate some of these. But fundamentally, when it comes to SPLOST projects, and really just major capital improvement projects, in the time between it's planned and funded and when it actually is delivered, a lot of the work that might need to happen to keep those systems running until then often happen through our facilities maintenance department and come out of the general fund.
Thank you so much. There's another question around Flex Academy. And so I think I can give a little bit more information. Flex Academy is, as I shared earlier, the district's virtual instructional program for students. Flex Academy was opened, I believe, in 2017 to provide virtual instruction in this new innovative model for our high school students. Since it opened in 2017, I believe over 1,000 students have graduated successfully from our Flex Academy program. Right now, Flex Academy is serving just high school students. As it relates to our elementary and middle school students, as I shared earlier, those students are being served by their home schools. There are plans in the future for Flex Academy to grow. Definitely, I see the question, so I will talk to Ms. Davis, who is our Chief Information Officer, and I am certain that Ms. Davis and the team would love to join us in a virtual meeting to share more about Flex Academy, as well as hear your questions and feedback. So I'll move to another question. Many parents are choosing to send their children away from their zone schools. Is there anything in the CMP can do to help rebrand schools that have a negative community perception? So Mr. Williams, if you don't mind, I'm going to take half of that question, and I'm certain that you have a little bit more. As it relates to just supporting schools with rebranding, or I would like to say reimagining, that is definitely one of the center points of the Division of Community Empowerment, Innovation, and Partnerships, working under the leadership of Dr. Connie Stevenson. What we will be doing over the next year and more is working with schools to understand what exactly are parents looking for within their school communities, and being able to support with the programming that communities would like to see, as well as supporting schools with being able to better tell their story. So what we recognize is that there's a lot of hidden gems, and maybe because of a negative perception of something that may have happened in the past, the community hasn't been able to understand all the wonderful programs that are taking place and all the growth that's happening with our students. And that's where we come in. And we're looking forward to, over the next year or two, working with many schools in the community around reimagining what their school looks like. There's a question also, Hans, that I think it's related to that came in earlier around what is the district doing around enrollment, as it appears that, we are seeing less enrollment in some schools than other schools. And again, we're looking to work hand in hand with the community to understand what are the programs that are really pushing success for our students, and what are the programs that the community really wants. And with that, working with schools to reimagine what's already existing, or to really amplify the programs that are there in order to support our children better. Hans, is there anything else you want to add as it relates to the two questions that I combined together?
I think you said it very, very well. I think the only thing I would add is with the DeKalb County School District, 1/5 of our students attend a school that is not their neighborhood school, which for even with reduced enrollment, we're looking at 93,000 students. That is a lot of students. And so looking at these programs that bring students from out of their neighborhood school to another school is absolutely something the CMP is taking into account. And I think a lot of the work when it comes to these programs and the reimagining, you've already talked about, and I think you said it very well, but there will be, the CMP is not blind to our special programs. And I think that there will be recommendations that touch on them and address the needs of these moving over the next 10 years.
Thank you so much, Mr. Williams. We have a question here from Ms. Kelly. Planning's facilities map shows an environmental studies center facility in Region 7. What is it used for?
So that's actually an older label. It hasn't changed. So there is a piece of land that's right next to Cedar Grove Middle School that was for a long time leased to the University of Georgia as an environmental studies center. So at this point, it's no longer leased to them. And I don't believe it is currently in use, although I believe that there was some interest. We'll have to look at that. But we've kept the label of it as the Environmental Studies Center for that reason.
Thank you so much. Will McNair Middle School get athletic lighting, or does it already have lights on its football field?
I'm going to let Richard address
Respond,
that.
yeah.
He might have more information.
No, there's not a plan for it to get lighting. The project that is being anticipated as a future project would just be for the high school fields.
Thank you so much, Mr. Boyd. Will there be more choice middle schools in the area close to Narvi?
Again, there's no recommendations that are being presented here tonight. But as I said before, the needs of school choice is something that's being considered in the CMP. But as far as specifically what recommendations you might see, you'll have to wait till next month.
Thank you. Does a demographic study consider the growing number of annexations over the past year into the city of Atlanta?
Yes. The best way to say that is we keep close track of annexations. It absolutely has an impact on our district, and we keep very close tabs on that. At the same time, the demographic study was more focused on a forecast of future students. And so while looking at how our district boundaries have changed over the past several years, and how that might change in the future, the reality is a lot of annexations have more of an impact on the boundary of the district. There are budgetary impacts, but student-wise, annexation hasn't been a big driver of student change. And so the short answer is yes, it is taken into account, but you won't really see it as a specific impact on the demographic study because it is so focused on bigger, broader demographic changes.
Thank you so much. Will the district find another means of serving the community besides consolidations and closing down more neighborhood schools?
We're looking at new schools, additions, really a host of different facility recommendations and improvements and changes. So yes, there will be different ways of serving the community beyond just consolidating schools.
Thank you so much. Who are the members of the CMP committee?
Sure. We actually have on the Comprehensive Master Plan website, there's a tab called FAQ, Frequently Asked Questions. And on there, one of the questions is, who does the CMP team consist of? So the core team, as I like to call it, the folks that are really thinking about what's happening on a more day-to-day basis, are first and foremost the superintendent, Mrs. Cheryl Watson-Harris, yourself, Mr. Harris, myself, Hans Williams, Richard Boyd as Director of Design and Construction and as an interim Chief Operating Officer. I have planning analysts that work under me. We've also got, of course, Perkins and Will, our consultants, CMP consultants that we've brought on board to help us. And those consultants also extend to Jacobs Engineering and Cropper GIS, who help us on the data side. And I will say, actually, I know I missed her, but Connie Stephen, yeah, she is there. Constance Stevenson, she's a big part of, especially now that we're looking at options and everything that I've mentioned as far as taking into account school choice. Connie has been a huge part of that.
Yes, thank you so much. And we do not have any other questions in the chat, but I'm going to give it a second. I do want to acknowledge Board Member Deidre Pierce that is in our virtual audience. Good evening, Board Member Pierce. If there are any other questions that you all have this evening or comments, please feel free to put them in the chat. Is there an update for when the forecast for school choice will be posted?
We're looking at all of our assessments and all of the data that goes into it. And so I've been saying in the next couple of weeks, I'd say right now our expectation is for the demographics, so the forecast, all of that should be in the next 2 weeks. The educational suitability assessment will be in the next 2 to 3 weeks. And I believe it was September, mid to late, third week of September at the latest, along those lines, for when we would get a facility condition assessment that we can publish and have the community react to. We want to make sure that we get all of these out before the September town halls. We want to make sure that all of the data that the recommendations are based on is published, and that people have had time to look at it and begin responding to it before we have our September town hall meetings.
Thank you so much, sir. And if possible, could someone put in the chat? I was multitasking, everyone. So what I put in the chat just now is a link to get to Flex Academy. And if someone from the district team can put in the chat the link so that the community can find the comprehensive master plan website or webpage where you could always keep up with information about the CMP process, as well as see the calendar of events and read the reports as we are working diligently to make sure that the information is the most up-to-date information possible, recognizing that there's still some more updates to make, but please know that we're working on it every single day. Question: how do you convince families to ignore the negative stigma associated with the McNair cluster?
I think that it's a very difficult one. And it's something that I think the district works on over time. So part of it is, starting at facilities. So that's where my mind goes first, of course. But so much of that goes beyond facilities and goes into how the district works with families and works with its community. And I think that's something that I think a few others here might have more to speak on than me, who's so much of a facility-oriented person.
Well, I see the superintendent. Superintendent?
Yes, and I'm sure you could chime in on this as well,
Yes.
Ms. Harris. We appreciate that question. We
Mhm.
appreciate that our community members will name something that's often kind of said in closed doors.
Mhm.
Our intention in our work with the CMP and our overall improvement strategy is to make every school a great school. We have wonderful programs in the McNair cluster. We have the beautiful new middle school, and we want to be able to work with our community to say, to get you into the buildings, not right now because of our volunteer policy, our volunteer and visitor policy, but ways for you to get to know the new McNair, right? To make sure that we continue to explore our school choice programs, what families would like to see in those schools, because as Ms. Harris said, in many ways we have to reimagine. And that's exactly what the CMP is allowing us to do, to take a look at the things that have been in place, to engage with our community, to know exactly what you want, to have you be reintroduced to some of our schools, our new school leaders, the programs and the wonderful things that are happening there, and to hear from you exactly what you're concerned about in terms of past reputation of these programs. But our goal is that children, if they would like to go to a school outside of their neighborhood, they most certainly can do that, but they should feel confident that the schools within their communities are high quality, safe, and offer high quality programs. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Superintendent. And I definitely just want to read out that Board Member Pierce is also in the chat to answer Mr. Gilbert's question. And I can attest to the fact that there are wonderful things happening within the McNair cluster. And Mrs. Pierce is suggesting that you contact our school's principals to find out what's going on and let others know what you've learned. from Ms. Kelly, does school improvement require a new program instead of strengthening the basics of a traditional school?
The answer is, I want to make sure, can you say the question again? Because I don't want to,
Yep.
please, Ms. Harris.
Does school improvement require a new program instead of strengthening the basics of a traditional school? So do you need to create a new program to improve
I got
school?
it. I
Okay.
just wanted to make sure I heard it correctly.
Okay.
The answer is no, and that is our day-to-day work apart from the comprehensive master plan. That's what we do every day. We make sure that our principals and our teachers are supported, that they have access to the right standards based curriculum, that we are working with them on assessing students, providing the right interventions where needed, and making sure that we're providing those wraparound services and accelerations and enrichments. That's what we do as a school system every day. Sometimes it does require, if we, some of the issues that we know exist right now in our school system. So where we have underutilized seats, we want to hear from the community about what new programs or what improvements we can make in that school above and beyond what we're already doing to make it the most competitive and attractive to our families. So I think the answer is not just a simple no, it's yes and. And that's exactly what we're doing as a school system. We're doing our day-to-day work to improve every school, because every school has room for improvement until we have 100% of all of our scholars proficient in both ELA and math. And that's what we do every day. And we're also exploring innovative ways to accelerate student achievement as well as increase enrollment across the board. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Superintendent. And as everyone can see, if you're looking in the chat, our operations team is hard at work in there. So a question came up around how do we propose projects and strategy for the strategic plan? And both David and Mel jumped in to make sure that everyone knows that you can provide us with feedback by going to the Comprehensive Master Plan's website under feedback and letting us know what is it that you're looking to see within your community or suggestions that you have. As Mr. Williams shared, we're not presenting recommendations today, but we're definitely considering continuing to take feedback, because what we know is that this is actually a continuous process, not a moment in time. Things shift and they change, and we're looking at this strategy for the long haul and not something that is just short-term and short-sighted. Mr. Gilbert, we definitely understand your concerns, sir. And, going again back to what Board Member Pierce said, we do encourage you to have conversations with your local principals and ensure that you're making the best choice for your child's education. Please know it's something that we think about and we work on every single day. And we do have faith and the schools within your community, but we definitely want to partner with you to strengthen what's there and support you with understanding what's available to you. And if there are no other questions or comments for this evening, we definitely thank you for your time. Thank you for letting me be your facilitator this evening. Thank you, Mr. Williams and Mr. Boyd. Superintendent, do you have any closing remarks?
Just a word of gratitude again. Thank you to our stakeholders that joined us this evening. Thank you to Dr. Rodney Swanson for serving as our Region 7 superintendent. Thank you to Board Member Pierce. Thank you to all of our stakeholders that joined us, that asked really powerful questions. Please know that we use these as opportunities for reflection. Thank you to our stakeholders that have been at every town hall. We appreciate you raising similar questions that you feel have not been answered, or questions that are just good for the good of the order for each town hall. So we're just very grateful. Thank you to all our interpreters and my staff who put these together and have been here each and every town hall. So I hope everyone has a great evening and stay safe. And we look forward to our next round of town halls where we will be sharing recommendations for you to react to. So thanks so much and have a good night.